Alright guys, this is your tutorial on how to do a basic edit in Camera Raw. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to open up Adobe Bridge and open up the folder that you're wanting to work out of. So wherever that photograph is that you're wanting to edit, go to that folder. Once you've done that, you're going to either right-click your image and say Open in Camera Raw, or you go up here, once that picture's highlighted, go up here to this little icon, and it will say Open in Camera Raw. If you hover over it, either of those options will open it in Camera Raw. The Camera Raw screen looks like this. So what you're going to do now is you are going to come over here to your panel. This first panel is called the basic panel. It controls your temperature, your exposure, just a lot of different basic tools. So I'm going to run through what a basic edit in Camera Raw looks like for my images. You can kind of just mess around with this and see what you like, what you don't like, different things like that. So I tend to like to warm up the temperature of all of my images a little bit. You don't have to do that, but I do. You can, if there's a lot of green in your image or a lot of purple, you can take that out or take it up a notch there. The exposure will either lighten or darken your image. So depending on what you like, I'm going to leave mine a little overexposed on that exposure measure right here. Contrast will adjust your contrast. Highlights, again, you can up the highlights or lower them if they're too bright. Shadows will lighten those shadows or darken them. Whites, blacks. Clarity, vibrance will adjust the vibrancy of your colors. So notice if I take that up, those colors are very, very vibrant. You never want to push it up here because that just looks pretty bad. I usually up my vibrancy to about between +5 and +10. Saturation will saturate those colors. So again, very saturated or not saturated down to black and white. I usually don't mess with saturation much. It's just the vibrance. Then you're going to come up here to the tone curve panel. So this one kind of adjusts the contrast of your image. So what I tend to do is I tend to drag this curve up a little bit so it boosts my midtones and my highlights, and then I grab down here and bring my shadows down a little bit just to add some more contrast. So now see how my highlights are a little bit brighter and my shadows are a little bit darker. Then I'm going to go to the detail panel. You can adjust the sharpen and noise reduction in this panel. I always bring my sharpening tool up to about 38 or so. I don't go much more than that, just because all this does is it just sharpens your pixels. It's not actually sharpening your image. So if this is an out of focus image, this is not going to help you at all. All of these things, if your image is way overexposed, way underexposed, or anything like that, this is only going to enhance an already well taken image. If it's a pretty poor image to begin with, this isn't going to help. It's probably just going to make it worse. So again, if your image is out of focus, this will not help with that. HSL grayscale panel. Okay, so right here I'm on the saturation tab. So this will either up the saturation of some of your colors or desaturate them. So I usually take my yellows down in saturation a little bit so they're not as powerful. I also do the same to my green. But notice if I take this up, well, there's not a whole lot of green in this image, so let's do purple since there's this strip of purple right here. If I grab this purple and bring it up, notice how that gets a lot more purple, and if I take it down, it desaturates that color. So you can kind of mess with that. The luminance and hue tabs, this will kind of change the color of that hue, that color. Luminance will brighten kind of those hues. So blues, watch all the blues on my image as I do this. Kind of like illuminates them. You never want to push anything too far to any side, because that's when you're over editing and it looks bad. Split toning, you can mess with that if you want. Lens corrections, I don't really mess with this too much except for vignetting. If I take this down, you'll see how the corners of my picture get really dark. I usually give mine a soft vignette, but not too much. Again, if you do too much to anything, it's going to make it look bad. Effects, you can mess with that again. Color calibration, different things like that. But I only work out of the basic, the tone curve, the detail, HSL grayscale, and the lens corrections panels. The rest I don't really mess with too much. Also on the HSL grayscale panel, if you click checkmark this box, that will turn it to black and white. And you can adjust the different colors inside of the black and white to adjust the contrast there. So that's how you would turn your image black and white as well. Now, when you're completely finished and you've got a good image, you are going to come down to Save Image. Now, for this first one, we're going to set up the settings in the Save Image panel. You will not have to do this after we do it here. Okay, so let's bring this down a little bit. Okay, so we're going to click on Save Image in the lower left-hand corner. So again, we're going to adjust some settings now. Once you do it, you won't have to do it again. So this will all remain the same. The film naming says document name. Right here, there's a little addition sign. You are going to put plus edit. So there's a plus sign, and then you're going to type in edit. This way, when you save your image after you're done, it will save it as an edited version, so it won't corrupt the original file. Make sure the format is JPEG, so JPEG. We're going to come down here to quality. We want it to be maximum, but we're going to change the number from 12 to 10. The space, it needs to read sRGB, IEC, and then all of these numbers. And then we're going to adjust one more thing. Down here in the resolution section, we're going to change it to 200 from wherever it's at. And then we're not, we're going to click Save here, okay, so that it'll save all of our settings. Then instead of saying, if we click Open Image, it will open it into Photoshop. So if you're ever going to do more in Photoshop, you'd click that. But when you're completely done, you don't click Done. You want to click Cancel, and here's why. So I'm completely done. I've saved my image. I'm going to click Cancel. And now that I've clicked Cancel, you'll notice in your bridge window that you have the original file and you have your edited file. And you can see that on the file name it reads IMG 5619 edit. So I know that this is my original and that's my edited version, and you want to make sure that you do that every time. You want to click that cancel button so that you do not corrupt the original file. Because if you, let's say, want to make this a black and white image, you make it black and white and you click Done instead of Cancel, then the original file is black and white and you won't be able to necessarily get it back. There are ways, but it's a little bit more cumbersome. So in order to just alleviate all of that, if you just click Cancel instead of Done, you'll get an edited version and an original. Now, with all editing that we do, you want to make sure you don't overdo it. Your images can start to look cheesy, corny, awful, terrible. Just don't overdo anything. You just want to do a basic edit to your images to enhance the good that you've already done. You don't want to overdo it. And that is how you do a basic edit in Camera Raw.